A millionaire offered $100 million to a street kid if he could open his impossible safe. Everyone laughed at the cruel challenge. What the boy said next froze their laughter forever. William Sterling clapped his hands together with such force that the sound echoed through his penthouse office like a gunshot. $100 million, he roared, his voice dripping with mockery as he pointed at the barefoot boy trembling in front of the titanium safe. All yours if you can open this beauty. What do you say, little street rat? The four businessmen surrounding William erupted into laughter so violent that some had to wipe tears from their eyes. The scene was too perfect. An 11-year-old boy in clothes so torn that the holes revealed his dirty skin, staring at the most expensive safe in America as if it were some magical object fallen from heaven. This is pure gold, roared Thomas Bradley, real estate mogul, slamming both hands on the mahogany table. William, you're a genius of entertainment. Does he even understand what you're offering him? Kenneth Palmer, pharmaceutical heir, leaned forward with cruel amusement glittering in his eyes. He probably thinks 100 million is like 100 bucks. Or maybe he thinks he can eat it, added Patrick Sullivan, oil magnate, provoking another wave of brutal laughter. Rachel Martinez gripped her mop with hands that shook so violently the wooden handle banged rhythmically against the marble floor. Each bang was like a drum marking her humiliation. She was the building's cleaning woman, and she had made the unforgivable mistake of bringing her son to work because she had no money to pay anyone to watch him. Mr. Sterling, Rachel whispered, her voice so low it barely registered over the laughter. Please, we're leaving now. My son won't touch anything. I promise you that. Silence! William roared, his voice cutting through the air like a whip. Rachel visibly flinched as if the words had physically struck her. Did I give you permission to speak? For 8 years you've cleaned my toilets without me addressing a single word to you. And now, you want to interrupt my meeting? The silence that followed was so tense it seemed solid. Rachel lowered her head, tears beginning to form in her eyes, and took a step back until she was almost pressed against the wall. Her son watched her with an expression that broke the heart, a mixture of pain, helplessness, and something deeper that no 11-year-old should ever have to feel. William Sterling, at 53 years old, had built a fortune of $900 million by being ruthless in business and cruel to those he considered inferior. His office on the 42nd floor was an obscene monument to his ego. Floor-to-ceiling windows with panoramic views of Manhattan, imported furniture that cost more than entire houses, and that Swiss safe he'd paid the equivalent of Rachel's 10-year salary for. But what William enjoyed most wasn't his wealth. It was the power it gave him to do exactly this. Remind poor people of their place in the world. Come closer, boy, William commanded with an imperious gesture. The boy looked toward his mother, who nodded almost imperceptibly despite the tears now running freely down her cheeks. He walked forward with small steps, his bare feet leaving marks of dirt on the Italian marble that cost more per square foot than everything his family owned combined. Can you read? William asked, crouching down to the boy's eye level. Yes, sir, the boy responded in a low but clear voice. And can you count to 100? Yes, sir. Perfect. William straightened up with a smile that made several of his partners laugh in anticipation. Then you understand what $100 million means, right? The boy nodded slowly. Tell me in your own words, William insisted, crossing his arms. What is $100 million to you? The boy swallowed hard, his eyes moving briefly toward his mother before answering. It's more money than we'll see in our entire lives. Exactly! William clapped, as if the boy had given the correct answer on an exam. It's more money than you, your mother, your children, and your children's children will ever see. It's the kind of money that separates people like me from people like you. William, you're being cruel even by your standards, commented Dennis Cooper, investor, though his smile indicated he was enjoying the show. It's not cruelty, Dennis. It's education, William responded without taking his eyes off the boy. I'm teaching him a valuable lesson about the real world. Some are born to serve, others to be served. Some clean, others make messes knowing someone else will clean up. He turned to Rachel, who was desperately trying to make herself invisible against the wall. Your mother, for example. Do you know how much she makes cleaning toilets? The boy shook his head. Tell him, Rachel, William ordered with calculated cruelty. Tell your son how much your dignity is worth in the labor market. Rachel opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Tears now fell like silent waterfalls, her body trembling with sobs she tried to contain. Don't want to tell him? William pressed, enjoying every second of psychological torture. That's okay, I'll tell him. Your mom earns in one complete month what I spend on one dinner with my partners. Isn't it fascinating how the world works? This is better than television, Kenneth laughed, pulling out his phone. We should be recording this. I already am. Patrick showed his device with a malicious smile. This is going straight to our private group. The guys at the club are going to die laughing. The boy observed the entire scene with an expression that was gradually changing. The initial shame was being replaced by something different, something more dangerous. A cold, calculated rage that burned in his eyes like coals. But let's get back to our game. William returned his attention to the safe, patting the metal like it was a prized pet. This beauty is a Swiss-Tech titanium, imported directly from Geneva. Do you know how much it cost? The boy shook his head. $3 million. William let the number float in the air. Just the safe cost more than your mother will earn in 100 years of cleaning my toilets. It has military technology, biometric scanners, codes that change every hour. It's absolutely impossible to open without the correct combination. Then why offer money for something impossible? The boy asked softly. The question caught William by surprise. For a moment, his smile faltered. What did you say? If it's impossible to open the safe, then there's no risk you'll have to pay the 100 million, the boy repeated with simple but devastating logic. So it's not a real offer. It's just a game to laugh at us. The silence that followed was different from the previous ones. The businessmen exchanged uncomfortable glances. The boy had just exposed the fundamental cruelty of William's game with brutal clarity. Look at that, Thomas laughed, but it sounded forced. The kid has brains after all. Brains don't do any good without education. William recovered his composure, though something in his voice had lost strength. And education costs money that people like you don't have. My dad said the opposite, the boy responded, his voice still soft but acquiring a firmness that surprised everyone. Your dad? Kenneth mocked. And where's your dad now? Too busy to take care of his own son? He's dead, the boy said without apparent emotion. But Rachel let out a choked sob that resonated throughout the office like a silent scream of pain. The word fell over the room like a bomb. Even the most cynical businessmen felt something uncomfortable moving in their stomachs. They had crossed a line without knowing it. I'm sorry, William murmured, though the words sounded hollow even to himself. You're not sorry. The boy looked directly into his eyes with an intensity that made William involuntarily step back. If you were sorry, you wouldn't be doing this. Boy, be careful how you speak to me, William warned, feeling control of the situation slipping from his hands. Or what? The boy asked with a calmness that was terrifying in someone so young. You'll fire my mom? You'll take away the job that barely lets us eat? You'll make us poorer than we already are? Each question was like a slap. William realized he had completely underestimated this boy, had assumed that poverty equaled stupidity. My dad was a security engineer, the boy continued, walking slowly toward the safe. He designed protection systems for banks and corporations. He taught me about codes and algorithms while he worked at home. He said that safes aren't just metal and technology. They're psychology. They're about understanding how people think. The four businessmen now watched in absolute silence, fascinated despite themselves. And what did he teach you about people? William asked, though part of him no longer wanted to hear the answer. The boy placed his hand on the cold surface of the metal, his fingers tracing the digital control panel with strange familiarity. He taught me that rich people like you buy the most expensive safes, not because you need the best security, but because you want to prove you can afford the best security. It's about ego, not about protection. That's ridiculous, Dennis protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? The boy turned to him. Then tell me, Mr. Sterling, what do you keep in your safe? Something you really can't afford to lose? Or just things you bought because you could buy them? William felt as if each word was a direct punch to his soul, because the boy was right. His safe contained jewelry he never wore, documents that could be replicated, and cash that was an insignificant fraction of his total fortune. He didn't keep anything irreplaceable. My dad said people confuse price with value. the boy continued, his voice acquiring an authority that seemed impossible for his age. You pay millions for things that aren't really worth anything. And you despise people who are worth everything but don't have money to prove it. Enough, William said, but his voice came out weak. I didn't come here to receive philosophy lessons from a child. No, you came here to humiliate my mom and me. The boy responded with brutal honesty that cut like a knife. You came here to remind us that we're poor and you're rich. You came here to feel superior. But what you didn't expect was that I know something you don't know. And what do you know that I don't? William asked mockingly, though he sounded less confident than before. The boy smiled for the first time, but it wasn't a smile of joy. It was a smile that had ancient knowledge behind it, wisdom that came from suffering. I know how to open your safe. The 5 words fell over the room like a death sentence. All the businessmen remained completely motionless, processing the impossible thing they had just heard. You're lying, William said, but there was a tremor in his voice that betrayed his uncertainty. Do you want me to prove it? The boy asked with the same unbreakable calm. That's impossible, Kenneth exploded. It's a $3 million safe with military technology. A street kid can't know how to open it. A street kid, the boy repeated, and for the first time there was real emotion in his voice. Is that what I am to you? Just a street kid? He turned to his mother, who watched him with a mixture of terror and pride that made her face shine despite the tears. Mom, the boy said softly, can I tell them? Rachel nodded, unable to speak but communicating everything with her eyes. The boy took a deep breath as if preparing for something difficult. My name is Tyler Martinez Johnson. My dad was James Johnson, Chief Security Engineer for Continental Bank for 15 years. He designed protection systems in 12 states, trained over 100 security technicians, and wrote 3 manuals that are still used in universities. The revelation hit like thunder. Thomas pulled out his phone immediately, searching for the name. His eyes widened when he found the information. My God, he murmured. James Johnson, the article from almost 3 years ago. He died in an accident during an installation at National Bank headquarters. It wasn't an accident, Tyler said, his voice breaking for the first time. It was negligence. The company subcontracted the electrical work to the lowest bidder. There was a short circuit while my dad was checking the systems. He died instantly. Rachel slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, openly sobbing now. All the dignity she had been trying to maintain crumbled. After his death, the company denied responsibility, Tyler continued, tears now running down his cheeks but his voice remaining firm. They said my dad violated safety protocols. They took away his pension, threw us out of our apartment. My mom, who had been a teacher, had to leave her job to take care of me because I had nightmares every night. And now she cleans toilets, Patrick murmured, all the previous mockery evaporating from his voice. Now she cleans toilets for men who treat her like she's invisible. Tyler nodded. For men who never asked her name, who never wanted to know that she raised a son alone for nearly 3 years while working 3 jobs, who never knew that she used to teach literature at a high school and that her students adored her. Each revelation was like a layer of humanity being restored to Rachel, layer by layer, until the businessmen could no longer see her as just the cleaning woman, but as a complete person with history, pain, sacrifice. My dad taught me everything about safes because he wanted me to understand his work. Tyler returned his attention to the Swiss-Tech titanium. We spent hours taking apart locks, studying algorithms, learning about security vulnerabilities. It was our time together. He placed both hands on the control panel, his fingers moving with a familiarity that spoke of years of practice. This specific safe, I know it well. My dad installed 3 of these in banks before he died. He showed me exactly how they work. Then do it, William challenged, though his voice had lost all its previous arrogance. If you really know, open it. Tyler shook his head slowly. I'm not going to open your safe, Mr. Sterling. Why not? Kenneth asked with genuine confusion. Because if I open it, you'll say I got lucky, or that I cheated, or you'll simply change the rules of the game like rich people always do. Tyler responded with a wisdom that hurt coming from someone so young. But there's something better I can do. What? William asked, completely captivated now. Tyler smiled, and this time there was some genuine victory in the expression. I can tell you your security code. The silence that followed was absolute. William felt as if the floor was moving beneath his feet. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Nobody knows that code except me. It's not even written down anywhere." "Your code is 1170847, right?" Tyler asked with casual calm. William staggered backward, his face losing all color. The numbers were exact. Absolutely exact. "How?" was all he could murmur. "Because all Swisstech safes come with a factory master code that's supposed to be changed immediately after installation," Tyler explained. "But my dad discovered that 73% of clients never change it. They just add layers of security on top without removing the original vulnerability. And the master code is always the production serial number, inverted, and with the last digit multiplied by 3, Tyler continued, pointing to a small plate on the bottom of the safe. "Series ST471780. Inverted is 087174. Last digit multiplied by 3 is 21. Use the last 2 digits, 2 and 1. But actually, wait." Tyler paused, recalculating in his head. The room held its breath. "Actually, the formula is reverse the serial, take the first 6 digits, then multiply the first digit by 3 and add it to the end." Tyler corrected himself, his young face showing intense concentration. "So, 087174. First digit is 0, times 3 is still 0. No, wait. Let me recalculate the actual sequence my dad showed me." Tyler closed his eyes, and everyone could see him visualizing something his father had taught him years ago. The serial ends in 780, reversed, 087. The master code algorithm uses 170847. That's already the reversed sequence of the last 6 digits. He opened his eyes and looked directly at William. "Am I right?" The explanation was so technical, so precise, so impossible to have been invented, that everyone instantly knew it was true. William dropped into his chair, completely destroyed. For years he had bragged about his $3 million safe, had felt false security in its military technology. And now an 11-year-old boy had just revealed that all that security was an illusion. "But wait," Tyler said, walking toward where William sat. "There's more." "More?" William asked with a hollow voice. "Your personalized security question is, what was your first car? And the answer you programmed is Corvette 1987, right?" William nodded slowly, unable to deny the undeniable. "My dad taught me that rich people always use security questions related to their most prized material possessions," Tyler explained. "They never use things about people, their mother's name, their first love, the place where they were born. Because deep down you value things more than people." The accusation fell over the room like a final judgment. The 4 businessmen found themselves staring at the floor, unable to make eye contact with the boy who had just exposed something fundamental about their souls. "So, Mr. Sterling," Tyler said, his voice taking on a final tone, "here's my real proposal. I don't want your $100 million, but I want you to do 3 things." "What things?" William asked, knowing he was completely defeated. "First, I want my mom to have a real job in this company, not cleaning toilets, but using her true talent. She can teach, she can train, she can do 1,000 more important things." Rachel looked at her son with eyes so full of love and amazement they shone despite the tears. "Second, I want the 5 of you to create an educational fund for employees' children. Not as charity, but as recognition that talent exists everywhere, not just in rich families." The businessmen exchanged glances. It was a proposal they couldn't reject without looking like complete monsters. "And third," Tyler paused, savoring the final moment, "I want you to change your safe's code, because now I know it. And if an 11-year-old boy can figure it out, how secure do you really think your money is?" The final revelation hit like a hammer. William realized that his symbol of security and power had been completely compromised, not by a professional thief, but by a boy who had learned from his deceased father. "Do we have a deal?" Tyler extended his small but firm hand. William looked at the hand for a long moment. He knew that shaking it would mean admitting defeat, admitting he had been humiliated by someone he had completely underestimated. But he also knew he had no choice. He shook the boy's hand. "We have a deal," he murmured. Tyler nodded, then walked to his mother and helped her stand up. Rachel hugged him with a strength that spoke of years of pain, sacrifice, and unbreakable love. "Mr. Sterling," Tyler said before leaving, turning one last time. "My dad used to say that the best safes don't protect money. They protect the lessons we learn from our mistakes. I hope you learn this lesson well." And with those final words, Tyler and Rachel left the office, leaving behind 5 rich men who suddenly felt like the poorest people in the world. William looked toward his $3 million safe and realized something devastating. He had spent a fortune protecting things that didn't matter, while he had neglected to protect the only thing that was truly worth anything, his humanity. The poor boy had given him the most expensive lesson of his life, and it hadn't cost a single penny. 3 days after the encounter that had shattered his ego, William Sterling found himself doing something he had never imagined. Waiting nervously at the building's entrance at 6 a.m, watching as Rachel Martinez arrived for what would be her first day as Human Development Coordinator. But she didn't come alone. Tyler walked beside her, his patched school backpack hanging from his shoulders, and behind them came something that made William feel a knot in his throat. A line of at least 20 cleaning staff, maintenance workers, security guards, and cafeteria employees who had heard about what had happened. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling," Rachel greeted with a firm but respectful voice. She was no longer the woman who trembled against the wall. Something fundamental had changed in her posture. "Rachel," William responded, extending his hand. "Welcome to your new position." As they shook hands, Thomas Bradley appeared from the elevator, his expression a mixture of curiosity and something that looked like shame. "William, can we talk for a moment?" They stepped aside, while Rachel and Tyler entered the building, followed by the silent group of workers who seemed to be witnessing something historic. "The others are furious," Thomas murmured in a low voice. "Kenneth called last night. He says you're making us look like sentimental idiots. That hiring the cleaning woman as an executive is madness that will destroy your reputation." "And what do you think?" William asked, though he could see the answer in his former partner's eyes. Thomas looked toward where Tyler had disappeared into the building. "I think that boy gave us a lesson we've needed for years, and I think if we don't learn it now, we're going to die as rich but empty men." The brutal honesty of the confession hit William deeply. "Will you come to the first meeting?" "I wouldn't miss it for anything," Thomas nodded. "I need to know what else I've been blind to all these years." 2 hours later, the conference room on the 42nd floor was filled in a way it had never been before. Not just with executives in expensive suits, but with employees who were normally invisible. Rosa, the cafeteria lady who had been making coffee for 15 years without anyone knowing her name. Miguel, the night security guard who had 3 university degrees but hadn't found other work. Carmen, the receptionist who spoke 4 languages but earned minimum wage. Rachel stood in front of everyone, with Tyler seated in the front row, observing with eyes that captured every detail. "Thank you for coming," Rachel began, her voice trembling slightly but strengthening with each word. "I know this is unusual. For 8 years I cleaned these floors without most of you knowing my name. Today I'm here because my son taught you something I had forgotten. That knowledge is worth more than money, and dignity can't be bought." She paused, her eyes moving toward William. "Mr. Sterling has asked me to lead a new initiative, identifying hidden talent among all employees of this company. Not just among executives, but among every person who works here." "This is ridiculous," a voice interrupted from the back. Dennis Cooper, the investor who had recorded the original humiliation, stood with an expression of disgust. "Hidden talent among cleaning staff? Among security guards? Rachel, with all due respect, this is a circus." "With all due respect?" Tyler stood up suddenly, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. "You don't know what that phrase means." Dennis blinked, surprised to be confronted by the boy again. "Excuse me?" "Respect means recognizing value in others regardless of their position." Tyler walked toward the center of the room with a confidence that silenced everyone. "You recorded my mom's humiliation to laugh with your friends. Is that respect?" The silence that followed was so dense it hurt. Dennis felt all eyes on him, judging him, evaluating him. "Miguel?" Tyler turned to the security guard, who startled at hearing his name. "Can you tell Mr. Cooper how many languages you speak?" Miguel swallowed nervously. I speak Spanish, English, French, and Mandarin." "And how many degrees do you have?" 3. Bachelor's in Administration, Master's in International Security, and Certificate in Crisis Management. The revelation fell like a bomb. The executives looked at the security guard they had overlooked for years with new understanding. "And why do you work as a guard?" Tyler asked gently. "Because when I came to this country as a refugee, nobody wanted to hire someone with a foreign accent for management positions," Miguel responded, his voice breaking. "But I needed to feed my family, so I took the only job they offered me." Rachel approached Miguel with tears in her eyes. "Starting today, you're going to lead our new international security department, with the salary that corresponds to your real qualifications." Miguel covered his face with his hands, openly sobbing. 15 years of feeling invisible, of being overqualified and undervalued, exploded in that moment of recognition. "Rosa," Tyler continued, "can you tell them what you did before working in the cafeteria?" The older woman stood slowly, her voice trembling. "I was executive chef at the Continental Hotel for 20 years. I lost my job when the hotel closed and couldn't find another at my age. Everyone said I was too old. And Carmen," Tyler pointed to the receptionist, "what's your real story?" Carmen took a deep breath. "I have a master's degree in international relations. I worked as a translator for embassies for 10 years. But when I had my daughter and asked for flexible hours, they fired me. Nobody else wanted to hire a single mother who needed to leave early to pick up her daughter." With each revelation, the executives sank deeper into their seats. William felt as if he were seeing his company for the first time, discovering layers of humanity and talent he had been ignoring for decades. "This is what my dad taught me before he died," Tyler said, his voice filling the entire room. "That poor people aren't poor because they lack intelligence. They're poor because the system is designed to keep them invisible. Because people like you decide in 30 seconds who's worth it and who's not, based on clothes, accent, age, or gender." Dennis stood up abruptly. "I'm not going to stay here to be lectured by a child." "Then leave," William said firmly, surprising everyone. "But if you walk out that door, don't come back. Because this company is changing, and there's no place for people who value ego more than humanity." Dennis looked at him with disbelief. "Are you firing me?" "I'm giving you a choice," William responded. "Learn the lesson this boy is teaching us, or find another company where they can tolerate your arrogance." Dennis looked around the room, seeking support, but only found faces watching him with expectation. Finally, with a gesture of frustration, he left, slamming the door. "Someone had to leave first," Thomas commented softly. "Better that it's him." Rachel retook control of the meeting, her voice now completely firm. "We're going to create a program where every employee can demonstrate their true abilities. I don't care if you've been cleaning bathrooms or serving coffee. If you have talent, we're going to find it and use it." The next 2 hours were one revelation after another. They discovered that the janitor was a certified accountant, that the cleaning employee on the 3rd floor had a degree in psychology, that the driver had been a civil engineer in his country of origin. At the end of the meeting, William approached Tyler, who observed everything with silent satisfaction. "Your father would be proud," William said softly. Tyler looked at him with eyes that shone with contained tears. "My dad said that the real legacy isn't the money you leave, but the lives you change. I think I finally understand what he meant." "I'm also starting to understand," William admitted, "and I'm 11 years behind." As everyone left the room, Rachel approached her son and hugged him tight. "How did you learn all this?" she whispered. "From you, Mom," Tyler responded. "You never lost your dignity even though they treated you like you were invisible. You taught me that a person's real value doesn't change no matter how others see them." And in that moment, in a conference room that had witnessed years of arrogance, something new was born. The possibility that real change was possible when humility replaced pride. The transformation was just beginning. But outside the building, in a luxury car parked across the street, Kenneth Palmer sat with his phone in hand, watching a video that had just been sent to him. It was footage from the security cameras, the entire humiliation of Tyler and Rachel, recorded from multiple angles, and Kenneth was deciding whether the world needed to see it. He looked at his phone screen, his finger hovering over the send button. The video was already uploaded to a private server. One click, and it would go to every major news outlet in New York. One click, and William Sterling's reputation would be destroyed forever. Kenneth had spent 3 days wrestling with his conscience. Part of him wanted revenge for being challenged by a child, for being made to feel small in his own circle of power. But another part, a part he had suppressed for decades, remembered something his own father had told him before he died. Power without accountability is tyranny, son, and tyranny always falls. His father had been a different kind of businessman. Ethical, compassionate, someone who believed that success and integrity could coexist. Kenneth had spent years trying to prove his father wrong, trying to show that ruthlessness was the only path to real wealth. But watching this video, watching Tyler defend his mother with nothing but intelligence and dignity, Kenneth saw something that terrified him. He saw the son his father had hoped he would become, reflected in a poor boy from the Bronx. His finger moved away from the send button. Instead, he dialed a number he hadn't called in years. It rang 3 times before a woman's voice answered. "Kenneth, is that you?" It was his sister, Jennifer. They hadn't spoken since their father's funeral 5 years ago, when Kenneth had contested the will and tried to take her inheritance. The legal battle had destroyed their relationship. "Jennifer," Kenneth's voice cracked, I need to tell you something." "I need to tell you I'm sorry." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for what felt like an eternity. "What happened?" Jennifer finally asked, her voice cautious but not cold. "I watched a video today," Kenneth began, and then he told her everything. About Tyler, about Rachel, about the safe, about the humiliation and the unexpected redemption, about watching an 11-year-old boy demonstrate more integrity than Kenneth had shown in his entire adult life. When he finished, Jennifer was crying. "Dad would have loved that boy," she whispered. "I know," Kenneth responded. "And Dad would have been ashamed of me." "Would have been." "Kenneth, he died ashamed of you. You know that, right?" The words were like a knife to his heart, but Kenneth knew they were true. His father's last words to him had been, "I hope you find whatever you're looking for in all that money, because you've lost everything else." "I want to change that," Kenneth said. "I don't know if I can, but I want to try. And I'm starting by deleting this video." "What video?" "The one that could destroy William Sterling, the one I've been planning to leak for 3 days. Kenneth's finger moved to the delete button. But Tyler's right. Rich people like us, we're so obsessed with winning that we've forgotten how to be human. He pressed delete. The video disappeared from the server. "I'm also going to call our lawyers tomorrow," Kenneth continued. "I'm going to reverse the contest of Dad's will. You deserve that inheritance. I took it out of spite, not need." Jennifer sobbed openly now. "Kenneth, I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything yet. Let me prove it with actions, not words. That's another thing Tyler taught me today." After the call ended, Kenneth sat in his car for a long time, watching employees enter and exit the building. Regular people, invisible people, people he had never considered truly seeing. And he wondered how many Tylers were out there, brilliant minds trapped in poverty, waiting for someone to give them a chance. Inside the building, William was in his office alone, staring at his safe. The door was open. He had changed the code immediately after Tyler left 3 days ago. But the new code wasn't random. It was 041512, Tyler's birthday, which Rachel had mentioned during one of their planning meetings. William reached into the safe and pulled out a velvet box. Inside was a diamond necklace worth $200,000, something he had bought for a girlfriend who had left him years ago. She had called him cold, emotionless, incapable of real connection. She had been right. He took the necklace to his desk and opened his laptop. Within minutes, he had listed it on an auction site, with all proceeds going to a scholarship fund. Not the one Tyler had proposed, that would come from company profits, but a personal donation, anonymous. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough to make up for decades of casual cruelty. But it was a start. His phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "This is Miguel Torres. Rachel gave me your personal number. I hope that's okay. I wanted to thank you for this opportunity. My daughter, Sophia, is 7 years old. Tonight I'm going to tell her that her father isn't just a security guard anymore. Thank you for letting me be the father she deserves to see." William read the message 3 times, tears blurring his vision. He had spent 53 years measuring success in dollars and deals. And in one text message, Miguel had shown him what success really looked like. Being able to look your child in the eye with pride. William typed a response. "Miguel, thank you for giving this company a chance to be better. And thank your daughter for me, for having a father brave enough to keep his dignity, even when the world tried to take it away." He hit send, then sat back in his chair, exhausted but strangely hopeful. The transformation wasn't just about company policies or salary increases. It was about something more fundamental, remembering that every person who walked through these doors was someone's child, someone's parent, someone's whole world. And for the first time in his life, William Sterling understood that the real poverty wasn't lack of money. It was lack of empathy. He was determined to never be that poor again. Meanwhile, in a small apartment in the Bronx, Tyler sat at a kitchen table doing homework while Rachel prepared a simple dinner. But unlike every other night for the past 2 years, there was something different in the air. Hope. "Mom," Tyler said without looking up from his math book, "do you think Dad would be proud of what we did?" Rachel stopped stirring the pot and turned to her son. She walked over and knelt beside his chair, taking his face in her hands. "Tyler, baby, your father is more than proud. He's in awe. He's celebrating. And he's telling you to keep going, to keep changing the world, to keep honoring his memory exactly as you have been. But what if it doesn't last?" Tyler's voice broke. "What if Mr. Sterling changes his mind? What if this was all just because he felt embarrassed?" "Then we'll survive, like we always have," Rachel said firmly. "But Tyler, listen to me. What happened in that office wasn't about William Sterling's embarrassment. It was about you showing him, showing all of them, that dignity isn't something they can give or take away. It's something we carry inside us, regardless of circumstances." "You taught me that," Tyler whispered. "And your father taught me." Rachel smiled through tears. "So you see, this is a legacy that keeps growing. And it doesn't depend on William Sterling or any rich man's generosity. It depends on us remembering who we are." Tyler hugged his mother, and they stayed like that for a long time. Two people who had lost everything but each other, who had been broken by tragedy but not defeated, who had survived the worst and were now daring to hope for something better. Outside their window, the Bronx hummed with evening life. Car horns, distant music, the sounds of a neighborhood full of people just trying to make it through another day. People like them, people who deserved more than they were getting. And tomorrow, Tyler would go back to that gleaming office building, would sit in meetings with executives, would help his mother identify talent in the invisible workforce. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. But tonight, in a tiny apartment with peeling paint and a refrigerator that didn't work quite right, Tyler and Rachel Martinez celebrated the rarest and most precious thing in the world, a second chance. Not just for them, for everyone who had ever been told they didn't matter. The revolution was coming, and it was being led by an 11-year-old boy who had learned from his father that the strongest safe in the world couldn't protect people from the truth. That respect isn't bought, that dignity isn't earned, that humanity is the only currency that truly matters, and that sometimes the poorest people in the world are the richest in the things that count. 1 week after the meeting that had changed everything, William Sterling received a call that made his blood freeze. It was his legal assistant, and her voice trembled with an urgency she rarely showed. "Mr. Sterling, we have a serious problem." The video. William felt as if the floor disappeared beneath his feet. He had completely forgotten that Patrick Sullivan had recorded the entire humiliation of Tyler and Rachel. "What about the video?" "It's circulating on social media. Someone leaked it from the private club group. It already has over 2 million views." William's world stopped. For decades, he had carefully built his public image as a successful businessman and respected philanthropist. A video showing him humiliating a child could destroy everything in hours. "I need to see that video. Now." 20 minutes later, William was in his office with Thomas, watching his computer screen as the video replayed the scene he had tried to forget. But what he saw left him completely paralyzed. The video didn't just show his cruelty. It showed everything. His arrogance, his mockery, Rachel's tears, Tyler's unbreakable dignity, and the devastating moment when the boy revealed his father had died. But worst of all was the video's ending, where someone had added subtitles highlighting every cruel moment with comments that destroyed William. "This man is worth 900 million, said a subtitle over his diamond watch. "This woman cleans toilets to survive," over Rachel crying. "This boy just lost his father," over Tyler revealing James's death. The comments were devastating. "This millionaire is a monster," That poor mother working while this guy mocks her son. The kid has more class than all these rich people combined. I need to know how this story ends. Does anyone know who they are? Thomas turned off the video, unable to keep watching. William, this is catastrophic. Your company's stock already dropped 12% this morning. There are hashtags calling for boycotts. The board of directors is demanding your resignation. William sank into his chair, feeling the weight of consequences he had completely ignored. Who leaked it? I have my suspicions, Thomas murmured. Patrick and Kenneth are furious about the changes you implemented. Dennis too, after you expelled him. As if summoned by his name, William's phone rang. It was Kenneth Palmer, and his voice dripped with pure venom. I hope you're enjoying your social justice experiment, William, because it's costing you everything. Was it you who leaked the video? William asked, though the answer was obvious from Kenneth's triumphant tone. I didn't leak anything, but when Dennis showed me the video and asked if I thought it should be public, I told him the truth always deserves to be known. What people do with that truth isn't my problem. Do you know what you've done? William felt rage boiling in his chest. You didn't just destroy me. You destroyed Rachel and Tyler too. Now the whole world knows them, will chase them, will turn them into a spectacle. You should have thought about that before turning them into your corporate pets, Kenneth responded coldly. You made us look like monsters, William. So we decided to show the world who you really are. The call ended, leaving William trembling with fury and helplessness. For 53 years he had controlled narratives, manipulated perceptions, built his image with surgical precision, and now a 5-minute video was destroying everything. What are you going to do? Thomas asked softly. Before William could respond, his secretary rushed in. Mr. Sterling, there are reporters surrounding the building, and Rachel Martinez just arrived with her son. The reporters are harassing them at the entrance. William stood immediately. Tell security to get them out of here, and bring Rachel and Tyler to my office through the private entrance. 10 minutes later, Rachel entered the office with Tyler, both clearly shaken. Rachel's eyes were red from crying, and Tyler held her hand with protective strength. I'm sorry, William said immediately, the words coming out before he could think them through. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I put you in this position. It's not your fault, Rachel responded, though her voice trembled. You didn't leak the video. But I created the situation that allowed that video to exist, William insisted. I was the one who humiliated you. I was the one who… Mr. Sterling, Tyler's voice interrupted him. The boy looked at him with those eyes too old for his age. Can I ask you a question? Anything. Are you sorry because the video went public, or are you sorry for what you did? The question hit William like a punch directly to his stomach. He realized that Tyler had just exposed something fundamental, the difference between regretting consequences and regretting actions. I'm sorry for both things, William answered honestly. But you're right to ask, because if the video had never leaked, I don't know if I'd really be facing what I did. Tyler nodded slowly, as if evaluating the sincerity of the response. My dad said that public mistakes require public corrections. If what you did was in public, then your repentance must be public too. What do you suggest? William asked, willing to listen to what this extraordinary boy had to say. A press conference, Thomas intervened suddenly. Tell the whole story. Not just the video, but what happened after. Show the real transformation. That would be professional suicide, William murmured, though he knew Thomas was right. Mr. Sterling, Rachel spoke with a firm voice that surprised everyone. My whole life I've been invisible. People looked at me without really seeing me. I cleaned their bathrooms, organized their spaces, and I was like a ghost that appeared and disappeared without leaving a trace. She paused, tears forming in her eyes, but her voice remaining strong. Now, for the first time in years, I'm visible. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's terrifying that millions of people have seen my humiliation. But they also saw my dignity. They saw my son defending me. They saw that we're real people with real stories. What are you saying? William asked softly. I'm saying we can't hide from this. We have to face it. Together. The word together resonated in the office with profound weight. William realized that Rachel wasn't blaming or abandoning him. She was offering him something he didn't deserve. Solidarity. There's something else. Tyler took out his backpack and extracted a worn folder. I've been working on something with Miguel and the other employees. He opened the folder, revealing meticulously organized documents. It's the complete plan for the Johnson Educational Fund. William felt a knot in his throat. You called it the Johnson Fund? After my dad, Tyler nodded. He believed that education was the only real way to break cycles of poverty. So we designed a program that doesn't just give scholarships, but connects students with professional mentors, offers technical training, and helps parents navigate the university system.
He turned the pages, showing financial projections, implementation timelines, and testimonials from employees who wanted to participate as volunteer mentors. It was professional-level work that would have impressed any corporate consultant. "You did all this?" Thomas asked with genuine amazement. "Not just me. Miguel contributed the administrative structure.
Rosa helped with the budget, because it turns out that besides being a chef, she's a certified accountant. Carmen translated everything into 4 languages to include immigrant families." William felt tears forming in his eyes as he turned the pages. This 11-year-old boy had created in 1 week something more significant than any initiative his social responsibility department had produced in years. "Tyler," William said, his voice breaking, "this is extraordinary, but it needs your public support," Tyler responded. "That's why I think the press conference is a good idea. Not just to apologize, but to announce this, to show that the change is real." "They're going to destroy me," William murmured. "The reporters, social media, my competitors, everyone will take advantage of this to sink me." "Probably," Tyler agreed with brutal honesty. "But my dad also said that real strength isn't in never falling, but in getting up every time you fall, and in getting up better than you were before." In that moment, the office door opened suddenly. It was Patrick Sullivan, and his expression was one of absolute fury. "So it's true," he roared. "You're going to do a press conference with these people? You're going to humiliate yourself publicly?" "Patrick, get out of my office," William said firmly. "Not until you recover your sanity." Patrick approached threateningly. "William, we've been friends for 20 years. I'm saving you from yourself. This woman and her son are manipulating you. They're using you to—" "Enough!" Tyler's voice cut through the air like thunder. Everyone turned to the boy, surprised by the force in his voice. "You recorded our humiliation for entertainment." Tyler walked directly toward Patrick without any fear. "Then you helped leak that video to destroy Mr. Sterling because you didn't like that he treated my mom like a person." "I didn't leak anything," Patrick protested, but his voice lacked conviction. "Maybe not directly, but you gave the video to Dennis, knowing exactly what he'd do with it." Tyler looked at him with eyes that seemed to see directly into his soul. "Do you know what makes you different from Mr. Sterling?" "What?" Patrick asked with disdain. "Mr. Sterling was cruel out of arrogance, but at least he had the courage to face his mistakes and change. You're cruel out of cowardice. You hide your cruelty behind protecting a friend when you're really just protecting your own ego." The silence that followed was so dense it hurt. Patrick stared at the boy with a mixture of fury and something that looked like shame. "Get out of my office," William repeated, his voice now loaded with absolute authority. "And Patrick, when you leave, think about whether the person you've become is someone your children would be proud to know." Patrick left without saying a word, but his expression was of someone who had just seen his own soul and hadn't liked what he found. When the door closed, William turned to Tyler. "The press conference is tomorrow, and I'm not going alone. Rachel, Tyler, I want you with me on that podium. I want the world to see that real change is possible." "Mr. Sterling," Rachel said softly, "are you sure? Once you cross that line, there's no going back. Your friends will abandon you. Your reputation will change forever." William looked directly into her eyes. "Rachel, for 53 years, I built a reputation based on power and fear. Maybe it's time to build one based on truth and humanity." Tyler smiled, and it was the first genuine smile William had seen on his face. "My dad would be proud to hear that. I hope I can make him proud," William responded. And in that moment, in an office that had witnessed so much cruelty, something miraculous happened. A millionaire, a cleaning woman, and an 11-year-old boy became allies united by something more powerful than money. They became a chosen family bound by shared values. The press conference would be tomorrow, and the world would never be the same. The Plaza Hotel conference room was packed beyond capacity. Over 200 journalists, national and international television cameras, and a crowd that had gathered outside created an atmosphere of electric tension. The humiliation video now had over 8 million views, and the entire world waited to see what the millionaire exposed as cruel would say. But what nobody expected was to see William Sterling enter the stage with Rachel Martinez on one side and Tyler on the other, all three walking together as if they were equals. The crowd's murmur intensified immediately. That's the woman from the video? Why are they together? This is going to be incredible. William approached the microphone, his hands visibly trembling. For 53 years he had given corporate speeches, spoken at international conferences, negotiated with presidents of countries, but he had never felt this level of paralyzing fear. "Good morning," he began, his voice sounding weaker than he had intended. "Thank you for coming." He stopped, swallowing hard, trying to find the words he had practiced all night. But when he looked at the audience, when he saw the faces judging him, all the prepared words disappeared. "I don't know how to do this," he finally admitted, his voice breaking. "I don't know how to ask forgiveness for something unforgivable." The silence that followed was absolute. Journalists leaned forward, cameras focusing on every detail of his face. "For a week, you've seen a video that shows the worst of me. A video where I humiliate a woman and her son for the simple fact that I could do it. Where I use my power to destroy the dignity of people who have no way to defend themselves." William paused, tears beginning to form in his eyes. "That video is real. It's not edited, not taken out of context. Every cruel word I said, every mockery, every moment of absolute contempt. That's me. Or at least, that was me." "Liar!" a voice shouted from the crowd. It was Dennis Cooper, who had entered uninvited. "You're putting on a show to save your company. We all know this is an act." Security guards moved to escort him out, but William raised a hand, stopping them. "Let him stay," William said firmly. "He has the right to be here. He has the right to call me a liar. Because for 20 years, I've been exactly that. A liar who hid his cruelty behind expensive suits and charitable donations." He turned directly toward Dennis. "But you're right about one thing. This is to save something. Not my company, not my reputation, but my soul." Dennis looked at him with contempt. "How touching. And how much are you paying these two to participate in your farce?" Before William could respond, Rachel approached the microphone. Her silent but powerful presence immediately captured the attention of the entire room. "Mr. Cooper," Rachel began, her voice clear despite the evident tremor. "For 8 years I cleaned bathrooms in the building where you held meetings. You saw me hundreds of times. Do you know how many times you greeted me?" Dennis blinked, clearly uncomfortable. I don't remember." "0, Rachel interrupted softly. 0 times in 8 years. Because to you, I was invisible. I was an object that moved mops and emptied trash, but I wasn't a real person." She pulled a folded paper from her pocket with trembling hands. "This is my work contract from 8 years ago. I earned $600 a month working 60 hours a week. That's $10 an hour to clean the bathrooms of men who spent more on a single meal." Her voice broke, tears flowing freely now. "Do you know what I did with those $600? $400 for rent on a room where my son and I slept on the same mattress on the floor. $100 for food, buying the cheapest possible so my son could eat at least twice a day, and the rest for his school supplies and transportation." The room was in absolute silence now, every person present completely captivated by Rachel's brutal honesty. "And do you know what's saddest?" Rachel continued, her voice now loaded with emotion that made every word hurt. "That I felt grateful. Grateful to have that horrible job. Grateful that men like you ignored me instead of harassing me. Grateful to be able to give my son a roof over his head even if it was a room with leaks." She turned to the audience, her eyes red but her posture incredibly dignified. "Mr. Sterling humiliated me in the worst possible way. He made me feel like trash in front of my own son. And that was horrible. But you know what? At least he saw me. For the first time in 8 years, someone recognized that I existed." "That doesn't justify what he did," a journalist shouted from the back. "No, it doesn't justify it," Rachel agreed firmly. "Nothing justifies cruelty. But there's a difference between someone who's cruel because they never thought about the harm they cause, and someone who sees the harm, recognizes it, and decides to change." She pointed toward Dennis. That man leaked the video not because he cared about my dignity, but because he wanted to destroy someone who had challenged him. He used my humiliation as a weapon. Is that better than what Mr. Sterling did? The question hung in the air like a devastating accusation. Dennis opened his mouth to protest, but found no words. Tyler approached the microphone then, and a murmur ran through the crowd. The boy from the video, who had defended his mother with unbreakable dignity, was about to speak. "My name is Tyler Martinez Johnson," he began with a clear voice loaded with emotion. "I'm 11 years old, and 2 years ago I lost my dad in a work accident that shouldn't have happened." He pulled a photograph from his pocket and held it in front of the cameras. It was an image of a smiling man with a small boy on his shoulders. "This is James Johnson. He was a security engineer. He designed systems to protect people. And he died because a company decided his life was worth less than saving money on certified electricians." His voice broke completely, tears running down his cheeks, but he continued speaking. "After he died, nobody helped us. The company denied responsibility. Insurance found technicalities to avoid paying. And suddenly, my mom had to become a cleaning woman because it was the only job she could get without stopping taking care of me." "Tyler, honey," Rachel approached, but Tyler gently shook his head. "I need to say this, Mom." He turned to the audience, his eyes sweeping over the hundreds of faces watching him. "You saw the video of my humiliation. You saw Mr. Sterling mocking me, my mom, our poverty, and you got angry. You wrote furious comments. You called for boycotts. You demanded justice. But how many of you have passed by people like my mom without really seeing them? How many have treated service employees as if they were invisible? How many have judged someone by their clothes, their job, or their accent without knowing their story?" The accusation was soft but devastating. Several journalists lowered their gaze, unable to maintain eye contact with the boy. "Mr. Sterling did something horrible," Tyler continued, "but at least he had the courage to face it. He had the courage to admit he was wrong and try to change. How many of you can say the same?" He approached the table where he had placed a thick folder. "This is the James Johnson Educational Fund. I designed it with help from employees Mr. Sterling had been ignoring for years. Employees who turned out to be engineers, accountants, translators, professional chefs. Brilliant people trapped in jobs that didn't reflect their true potential." He opened the folder, showing pages filled with numbers, projections, and testimonials. "This fund will give full scholarships to 100 students from working families every year. Not just money for tuition, but mentors, training, and family support. It will cost $5 million per year. And Mr. Sterling just committed to funding it for the next 20 years. That's $100 million. The same $100 million he offered me as mockery that day in his office." The crowd's murmur became audible exclamations. Journalists shouted questions simultaneously. "Is that true, Mr. Sterling? $100 million? Isn't this just public relations?" William approached the microphone, his hands no longer trembling. "It's absolutely true. I signed legally binding documents this morning. $100 million over 20 years for the James Johnson Fund. But there are conditions," he added, surprising everyone. "I don't control how the money is used. That's decided by a board composed of Rachel, Tyler, Miguel Torres, and 3 representatives elected by beneficiary families. I just sign the checks." "Why?" a journalist shouted. "Why give up so much control?" "Because for 53 years I've controlled everything," William responded with brutal honesty. "And that control turned me into a monster. I need to learn to trust people who are better than me, people who understand what really matters." Dennis pushed through the crowd, his face red with fury. "This is absurd. William, you're giving away your fortune to people who don't deserve it." "Don't deserve it?" Tyler turned to him with eyes that shone with tears and indignation. "My mom works harder in one day than you probably have worked in your life. Miguel has 3 university degrees and speaks 4 languages. Rosa was executive chef at one of the most prestigious hotels in the country. They all deserve opportunities that were denied to them by people like you, people who decide human value based on bank accounts instead of character." "You're just a kid!" Dennis exploded. "You don't understand how the real world works." "I understand perfectly how it works," Tyler responded with devastating calm. "It works with powerful people protecting their power at the expense of vulnerable people. It works with systems designed to keep the rich rich and the poor poor. It works with people like you convincing themselves they deserve their privilege while others deserve their suffering. Or he approached Dennis directly, unafraid despite the size difference. But you know what? That system is changing, not because a millionaire decided to be generous, but because the truth is coming to light, because people are tired of injustice, because kids like me are saying enough. The room exploded in applause, not from everyone, but from enough people that the sound was deafening. Dennis looked around in disbelief, realizing he had completely lost control of the narrative. "What about the other companies?" a journalist shouted when the applause died down. "What about Kenneth Palmer and his harassment lawsuits? About Patrick Sullivan and his dead workers?" Tyler exchanged a glance with Rachel, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "We have complete documentation on multiple companies operating with illegal or immoral practices," Tyler confirmed. "But we're not going to publish it today." "Why not?" several journalists shouted simultaneously. "Because we don't want to destroy anyone," Rachel responded, taking the microphone. "We want them to change. We're giving each of those businessmen the same opportunity we gave Mr. Sterling. Recognize their mistakes, make real reparations, and become better people." "And if they don't?" asked a skeptical journalist. "Then that information will become public," William responded firmly. "But it will be their choice. They can choose to change voluntarily, or they can be forced to change by public scrutiny." A journalist from an international outlet stood up. "Mr. Sterling, you're going to lose hundreds of millions with this initiative. Your stock has already fallen 28%. There are rumors the board will force your resignation. Is it worth it?" William looked toward Rachel and Tyler, then toward the audience. "A week ago, I would have said no. I would have said, my company, my fortune, my reputation were the most important things in the world. But I met an 11-year-old boy who taught me there are things more valuable than all the money in the world. He taught me about dignity, about justice, about the kind of legacy that really matters." His voice broke completely. "I spent 53 years accumulating wealth that never made me happy, building empires that never made me feel fulfilled, trying to fill a void with things that couldn't fill it. And then a woman who cleaned my bathrooms and her son showed me what I had been looking for all this time: real purpose, genuine human connection, the satisfaction of using your privilege to lift others instead of crushing them." Tears ran freely down his face now. "So yes, it's worth it. Worth every penny, every percentage point of stock drop, every friend who abandons me. Because for the first time in my life, when I look in the mirror, I see someone my mother would have been proud to know. The silence that followed was sacred. Even the most cynical journalists found themselves speechless at the brutal honesty of the confession." Tyler approached William and took his hand. The gesture was simple, but its meaning was profound: forgiveness, solidarity, and the promise that real change was possible. Rachel took William's other hand, and the three stood before the cameras, united not by money or power, but by something infinitely stronger. The conference ended with a standing ovation that lasted almost 5 minutes. Outside, the world reacted. Hashtags changed from "Fire Boycott Sterling" to "Second Chances." His company's stock began to recover, and most importantly, dozens of businessmen began contacting privately, asking how they could implement similar changes. The transformation had stopped being personal. It had become a movement. 3 months after the press conference that had changed everything, Tyler Martinez Johnson found himself standing in a place he never imagined he would visit with so many people: the municipal cemetery where his father had been buried almost 3 years ago. But he wasn't alone. Behind him walked William Sterling, carrying a bouquet of white flowers. Beside him was Rachel, holding a bronze plaque that gleamed under the afternoon sun. And surrounding them were over 200 people, the first 100 beneficiaries of the James Johnson Fund, employees from the transformed company, and dozens of families whose lives had been changed during the past months. Miguel Torres carried a shovel. Rosa had brought special soil from her personal garden. Carmen held a camera, documenting every moment for the historical archive they were building. Here, Tyler pointed to a simple headstone that read, "James Johnson, engineer, husband, father, 1985-2023. For 3 years, that grave had remained almost forgotten, visited only by Rachel and Tyler when they could afford transportation to the cemetery. It hadn't had fresh flowers since the funeral because the money that would have been spent on flowers was needed for food. But today was different. "Mr. Johnson," William spoke toward the headstone, his voice breaking immediately. "I never had the honor of meeting you in life, but I've come to know you through your son, who taught me everything you taught him, and I've come to ask your forgiveness." He knelt before the grave, placing the flowers with trembling hands. "Forgiveness for being the type of man you dedicated your life to protecting others against. Forgiveness for treating your wife as if she were invisible. Forgiveness for humiliating your son when he was only honoring your memory." Tears ran freely down his face now. "But I want you to know that your death wasn't in vain. Your son has taken the pain of losing you and transformed it into a movement that's changing lives across the region. He's converted your tragedy into the triumph of hundreds of families." Tyler approached and put a hand on William's shoulder. "My dad would have said that forgiveness is earned with actions, not words, and you've demonstrated your actions for 3 complete months." Rachel knelt beside them, placing the bronze plaque against the headstone. On it was engraved, "James Johnson, spiritual founder of the educational fund that bears his name. His teachings about dignity, knowledge, and justice continue transforming lives long after his departure." 2023, forever. "James," Rachel spoke toward the grave with a soft but clear voice, "I promised you on the day of your funeral that our son would never forget who you are, that he would keep alive everything you taught him, but I never imagined this." She gestured toward the 200 people surrounding them. "Look at how many lives you're touching now. Look at how many families are being lifted, because you taught our son that knowledge is power, that dignity isn't negotiable, that kindness is strength." Her voice broke completely. "I miss you every second of every day. I miss your laugh, your stories about safes, the way you made even the most complex lessons sound simple. But I also feel like you're here, living through Tyler, guiding every decision he makes." Tyler hugged his mother as she sobbed, his own tears mixing with hers. For 3 years he had carried the weight of being strong for his mother, of never completely breaking down because she needed him to be her rock. But today, surrounded by a community that loved them, he allowed himself to finally feel the full weight of his loss. "Dad," Tyler spoke through sobs, "today marks exactly 3 years since you left. 3 years where I've had to learn to be a man without you. 3 years where Mom has worked so hard that sometimes she forgot to eat. 3 years where I've needed you more than words can express." He wiped his tears, trying to maintain composure, but failing completely. "But I also want you to know that your teachings saved me. When Mr. Sterling humiliated us, it was your words that came out of my mouth. When I had to defend Mom, it was your courage I felt in my heart. When I designed the educational fund, it was your wisdom that guided every decision." Miguel approached and put a hand on Tyler's shoulder. "James, we didn't meet in life, but I want you to know that your son gave me back my dignity. He saw me when everyone else ignored me, and now I can use my real abilities to help others like he helped me." Rosa approached next. "I also have a son, Mr. Johnson. He's the age Tyler was when you died. And for years I worried that my work as a cafeteria employee would teach him that his mom wasn't worth anything. But Tyler showed him that a person's value isn't measured by their job, but by their character." One by one, fund beneficiaries, transformed employees, and complete families approached the grave. Each shared how James's teachings, transmitted through Tyler, had changed their lives. An 18-year-old young woman, the first in her family to go to college thanks to the fund, spoke with a trembling voice. "Mr. Johnson, I'm going to study engineering because your son told me that women can build bridges both literal and metaphorical. My dad works construction and never imagined his daughter could design the buildings he constructs, but now he imagines it. Thanks to you." A 10-year-old boy, whose mother had been promoted from cleaning to human resources management, placed a drawing on the grave. "I drew a superhero that looks like you, Mr. Johnson, because my mom says you saved her family even after dying, and that's what superheroes do." William watched everything with reverential amazement. For 53 years he had pursued legacies based on buildings with his name, on corporate foundations, on magazine articles celebrating his wealth. But none of that compared to this. A man who had died in poverty, but whose impact multiplied exponentially through the lives he touched. "James," William spoke again, his voice loaded with emotion he had never felt before. "I envy you. I know it's strange to envy a dead man, but it's true. Because you had something all my money could never buy me. A son who loves you so deeply that he converted your memory into a movement. A wife who honors you every day by being exactly the woman you raised your son to respect. I spent decades building empires that will be forgotten when I die. You worked in silence, teaching your son simple lessons, and created a legacy that will live forever. That's true wealth. That's true success." Tyler pulled an envelope from his backpack. "Dad, there's something I want to read to you. It's a letter I wrote but never sent because I didn't know where to send it." He opened the envelope with trembling hands and began to read. "Dear Dad, it's been 3 years since you left, but I feel like our conversation never ended. I still talk to you in my mind every day. I still hear your voice when I face difficult decisions. I still feel your hand on my shoulder when I need courage. I want to tell you about everything that's happened. About how a rich man humiliated us, but then became our ally. About how Mom went from cleaning bathrooms to directing programs that changed lives. About how your teachings about safes helped me open the closed heart of a millionaire. But more than anything, I want you to know that I forgive you." Rachel looked up sharply, surprised. Tyler had never mentioned needing to forgive his father. "I forgive you for working so hard that sometimes you came home too tired to play. I forgive you for taking that dangerous job because you needed the money. I forgive you for dying and leaving us alone." Tears fell on the paper now, staining the words. "I know it sounds silly to forgive you for things that weren't your fault, but for 3 years, I've carried a silent anger against you for leaving us. For not being more careful, for not fighting harder to stay. But now I understand that you did exactly what you always did. Protect others even when it put you in danger. And I understand that you taught me everything I needed to know before leaving. You gave me tools to survive, to thrive, to transform pain into purpose. So I forgive you. And more importantly, I forgive myself for all the moments I felt like I wasn't enough without you. Because now I know I'm exactly who you wanted me to be. Someone who uses knowledge to serve, who defends others' dignity, who converts the privilege of education into the responsibility of lifting communities." Tyler's voice broke completely on the last lines. "I love you, Dad, and I promise to keep making you proud every day of my life, not by building monuments to your memory, but by living the values you taught me. Your son forever, Tyler." The silence that followed was sacred. 200 people cried openly, moved by the brutal honesty of an 11-year-old boy who had just articulated a pain that many adults never find words to express. Rachel hugged her son with a strength that spoke of 3 years of shared pain, 3 years of being strong for each other, 3 years of converting tragedy into triumph. William approached slowly and knelt before Tyler. "James, if you're listening from wherever you are, I want to make you a promise. I'm going to take care of your family as if they were mine. Not because I need them for my redemption, but because they've given me something I never had. Real purpose. Tyler will never replace you as a father. Nobody can do that. But if he allows me, I'd like to be a mentor, a friend, someone who ensures your son has all the opportunities his brilliance deserves." He looked directly at Tyler. "And I promise you that every decision I make in my company, I'll ask myself, what would James Johnson do? Because you raised a son who understands leadership, integrity, and human dignity more than any executive I've ever known." Tyler extended his hand toward William. "Deal. But there's one condition." "What?" "That you never forget that the real treasure isn't in safes. It's in the lives you touch, the people you lift, and the legacy of kindness you leave." William shook the boy's hand, sealing a promise he knew he would keep until his last breath. Miguel began digging a small hole next to the grave. Rosa added special soil, and together they planted a tree, a young oak that, according to the symbolism Tyler had researched, represented strength, longevity, and legacy. "This tree will grow for the next 100 years, Tyler explained as everyone helped plant. "It will give shade to future visitors. Its roots will deepen, keeping it firm during storms. And every year it grows, it will remind us that real impact isn't measured in months or years, but in generations." When they finished planting, everyone stood in a circle around the grave. Carmen took a photograph that would capture this moment forever. 200 people of all ages and backgrounds, united in reverent silence, honoring a man they never knew but whose teachings had changed their lives. "There's one last thing," Tyler said softly. He pulled a small object from his pocket, the first tool his father had given him when he was 6 years old, a simple master key used to teach him about locks. He held it for a moment, remembering the feeling of his father's hand guiding his as he learned to turn the key just right. Then, with a decisive movement, he buried it at the foot of the newly planted tree. "So, the roots will grow around it," he explained. "So part of him will always be here, giving strength to the tree that symbolizes his legacy." As the sun began to set, painting the sky with golden and pink tones, the group gradually dispersed. But William, Rachel, and Tyler stayed a moment longer. "Do you think he's proud?" Tyler asked in a low voice. Rachel hugged him tightly. "My love, your father is more than proud. He's in awe. He's celebrating. And he's telling you to keep going, to keep changing the world, to keep honoring his memory exactly as you have been." William put a hand on Rachel's shoulder and another on Tyler's. "James Johnson never built buildings with his name. He never accumulated millions of dollars. He never appeared in magazines celebrating his success. But he built something infinitely more valuable, a family that understands that real legacy is measured in changed lives, not in bank accounts. And thanks to him," William continued, his voice breaking with final emotion, "a man who had lost his soul found it again. Thanks to him, hundreds of families have hope. Thanks to him, a movement of transformation is changing how companies treat people. That's the kind of wealth that never dies. That's the kind of success that transcends generations. That's the kind of legacy that turns an ordinary man into someone extraordinary." As they walked toward the cemetery exit, Tyler turned one last time toward his father's grave, toward the newly planted tree, toward the plaque that gleamed under the last rays of sun. And in that moment, he felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Complete peace. Not because the pain had disappeared, but because he had learned the final lesson his father wanted to teach him. That true love never dies. It transforms. It multiplies. It becomes actions that change the world. And as Tyler Martinez Johnson walked toward his future, hand in hand with his mother, and accompanied by the man who had gone from enemy to ally, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. His father would live forever. Not in marble headstones or expensive monuments, but in every life changed by the James Johnson Fund, in every employee treated with dignity instead of contempt, in every child who would learn that knowledge is power and kindness is strength, in every millionaire who would learn that the real treasure isn't kept in safes. It's shared, it's multiplied, and it lives forever in the hearts it touches. 3 years after losing his father to corporate negligence, 11-year-old Tyler had done something impossible. He had transformed tragedy into triumph, pain into purpose, and his father's memory into a movement that would outlive them all. The poor boy had taught rich men the most expensive lesson of their lives. And the best part? It hadn't cost a single penny. Because the only currency that truly matters can't be bought or sold. It can only be earned through kindness, protected through dignity, and passed on through love. And that legacy would last forever.